21. Most shocking family secrets hidden by Hollywood's greatest stars. That will shock you. The dazzling world of classic Hollywood often hid more than it revealed. Behind the flawless faces and award-winning performances were raw truths of pain, secrecy, and sacrifice. These 21 stories don't just expose scandals, they humanize legends. So now we ask, should we judge these stars by the secrets they kept or the art they gave the world? Drop your thoughts in the comments and be part of the conversation. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Uncovered Tinseltown. Uncovered for more powerful stories that go beyond the spotlight, because truth deserves its place in history too. Merle Oberon. The luminous star of Wuthering Heights 1939 dazzled audiences with her elegance and exotic beauty. But beneath the glamour lay a secret so carefully concealed that even her closest companions, including her husband and children, never learned the truth during her lifetime. Born as Estelle Merle O'Brien Thompson on February 19, 1911 in Bombay, British India, now Mumbai, Oberon was the child of an Anglo-Indian mother who was only 12 years old at the time of her birth. Disturbingly, historical accounts reveal that Oberon may have been the result of a sexual assault committed by her step-grandfather. To shield her from the shame and racial prejudice of the era, her family constructed a fictitious family history. Merle was raised to believe her biological mother was her older sister and that her actual grandmother was her mother. This deception was further amplified when she moved to London to pursue acting and later to Hollywood. Under the guidance of powerful studio executives, she adopted the story that she was born in Tasmania, Australia, conveniently chosen because a fire had allegedly destroyed all local birth records, making verification impossible. As she rose to stardom, Oberon went to great lengths to disguise her mixed-race heritage. She underwent painful skin treatments to lighten her complexion and insisted on filtered lighting to mask any visible traits deemed non-European. The facade consumed her public life. She refused to visit Australia for decades, fearing exposure, and denied any personal connection to India, even when questioned directly. Her ability to keep her origins hidden for so long underscores both the racial intolerance of Hollywood's golden age and the personal toll it took on those who dared to chase fame while living behind a mask. Oberon died in 1979, her secret largely intact until biographies revealed the full truth. Rita Hayworth is remembered as one of the most iconic sex symbols of the 1940s, immortalized in films like Gilda 1946. But her journey to Hollywood stardom was not only paved with reinvention, it was also haunted by unspeakable pain. Born Margarita Carmen Cancino on October 17, 1918 in Brooklyn, New York, she was the daughter of Spanish dancer Eduardo Cancino and Ziegfeld showgirl Volga Hayworth. Her Latin heritage, however, was deemed too ethnic by Hollywood executives at the time. Columbia Pictures head Harry Cohn ordered an aggressive transformation. Her hairline was reshaped through electrolysis to give her a more Anglo appearance. Her hair was dyed auburn, and her name changed to Rita Hayworth. Her accent and background were systematically erased. But what the public didn't see was the deeper trauma beneath the glamorous veneer. From the age of 12, Rita was made to tour with her father as a dancing partner in nightclubs and casinos. Years later, she confided in her second husband, Orson Welles, that her father had sexually abused her during those years. While she captivated the world with her beauty and sensuality, she suffered from deep emotional wounds that contributed to failed marriages and lifelong insecurity. Hayworth once lamented, "Men go to bed with Gilda, but they wake up with me." Her quote poignantly revealed the disconnect between her public image and her true self. Despite becoming one of Hollywood's most enduring legends, she spent much of her life fighting internal battles shaped by both her erased identity and her childhood trauma. Her legacy, though radiant on screen, is layered with silence, reinvention, and quiet resilience against the violence hidden behind the lights. Jack Nicholson. Renowned for his intense performances in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and The Shining, carries one of Hollywood's most bewildering personal secrets. Born on April 22, 1937 in Neptune City, New Jersey, Nicholson grew up believing that his mother was his sister. In truth, his biological mother, June Frances Nicholson, was just 17 when she gave birth to him. Facing the immense stigma surrounding teenage unwed motherhood in 1930s America, June's parents stepped in to raise Jack as their own. For 37 years, Nicholson lived in a false narrative calling his grandmother Mom and his actual mother Sis. It wasn't until 1974, during a Time magazine interview, that a journalist revealed the truth to him after investigating public records. By then, both June and Ethel May, his grandmother, had already passed away, leaving Nicholson without the chance to confront or reconcile with either. Though the revelation didn't provoke an emotional breakdown, Nicholson described it as a pretty dramatic event and noted that it took time to fully process. He never publicly expressed anger, only a sense of disorientation and contemplation. His experience isn't unique among celebrities of his era. It reflects a broader cultural tendency to hide family secrets in the name of preserving reputation. Nicholson's story is a striking example of the psychological complexities that come with fame and image. He continued to excel in his career, winning 3 Academy Awards. Yet the truth about his family origins remains one of the most poignant twists in Hollywood lore. It serves as a reminder that even those who appear larger than life on screen often carry deeply human stories of deception, loss, and identity behind the scenes. Bobby Darin. Born Walden Robert Cassato on May 14, 1936 in the Bronx, rose to stardom in the late 1950s with hits like Splish Splash and Mac the Knife. Known for his suave style and fearless ambition, he projected the image of a confident, self-made showman. But behind the fame was a devastating truth about his identity that unraveled his sense of self at the height of his success. Raised by a woman he believed to be his mother, Polly Cassato Bobby grew up idolizing her strength and guidance. But in his 30s, at the peak of his career and married to actress Sandra Dee, he was told a secret that shattered his world. Polly was not his mother, but his grandmother. The woman he had known as his sister, Nina Cassato Mafia, was in fact his biological mother, who gave birth to him at age 17 after becoming pregnant out of wedlock. Unlike Jack Nicholson, who discovered his own family secret from a journalist, Darin heard the truth from Nina herself. The emotional blow was profound. Friends and colleagues noticed an immediate change in him. He retreated from the limelight, grew a mustache, and moved to Big Sur, channeling his energy into folk music and political activism. Already battling rheumatic fever-related heart problems since childhood, Darin's emotional collapse accelerated his physical decline. He died at the age of 37 in 1973, following heart surgery. His life is a haunting reminder that fame does not shield one from identity crises, and that the most powerful wounds are often those hidden behind carefully crafted personas. Lon Chaney Sr. Born April 1, 1883 in Colorado Springs, was known as the Man of 1,000 Faces for his unmatched skill in silent cinema classics like The Phantom of the Opera 1925 and The Hunchback of Notre Dame 1923. But Chaney's mastery of expressive, wordless acting didn't come from formal training. It was born from his silent upbringing. Both of Chaney's parents were profoundly deaf. His father, Frank Chaney, was a barber. His mother, Emma Alice Kennedy, was also non-hearing. Growing up in a household where American Sign Language was the primary mode of communication, young Lon developed an extraordinary ability to convey emotion through facial expression and body movement. This silent world became the foundation of his cinematic brilliance. In early 20th century America, disability carried heavy stigma. Chaney was deeply protective of his family and rarely discussed their condition publicly. When he married his first wife, Cleva Creighton, she reportedly didn't learn of his parents' deafness until after meeting them, highlighting how intensely private he was about his background. This guardedness extended to the press, who were never given insight into the personal life behind the mask. Despite his fame, Chaney avoided the trappings of celebrity. He lived modestly shunned interviews and focused on the craft of acting. His performances were celebrated for their pathos and humanity, often portraying tortured souls and misunderstood outcasts. Many critics believe his own childhood shaped this emotional depth. Lon Chaney Sr. died in 1930 at the age of 47 from throat cancer, never having publicly acknowledged the formative influence of his parents' disability. His artistry remains iconic, but it's the quiet personal story behind his silence that deepens the legacy of one of cinema's most transformative talents. Gene Tierney, born November 19, 1920 in Brooklyn, New York, became a cinematic icon of the 1940s with her ethereal beauty and riveting performances in films like Laura 1944 and Leave Her to Heaven 1945. Yet behind her screen, perfection was a heartbreaking family secret that changed the course of her life. In 1943, while pregnant with her first child, Tierney made a public appearance at the Hollywood Canteen, a popular venue for entertaining U.S. troops during World War II. Despite wartime health warnings, a devoted fan infected with rubella German measles broke quarantine to meet her. The encounter seemed harmless, but had devastating consequences. Tierney contracted the disease and gave birth to a daughter, Daria, who was born deaf, partially blind, and severely developmentally disabled. Fearing public judgment, Tierney and her then-husband designer Oleg Cassini placed Daria in a private institution. The emotional toll was immense. Tierney blamed herself even after learning years later that the fan who had infected her had bragged about their meeting. Though she remained silent for decades, the guilt consumed her. Her mental health deteriorated. She endured severe depression and multiple hospitalizations, including electroconvulsive therapy, an extreme but common treatment at the time. Tierney returned to the screen in the 1950s, but never fully escaped the trauma. In her 1979 autobiography, Self-Portrait, she publicly revealed the full story for the first time, describing it as the greatest sorrow of her life. The tragedy also inspired Agatha Christie's novel The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side, though few recognized Tierney as its real-life inspiration. Gene Tierney's story stands as a powerful testament to how a single unintended moment can haunt a lifetime, and how even Hollywood's most beautiful faces carried invisible scars. Clara Bow, born July 29, 1905 in Brooklyn, New York, became the face of the roaring 20s and Hollywood's first true it girl. With her magnetic presence in films like Wings 1927 and It 1927, she revolutionized stardom. Yet behind her wide eyes and carefree smile was a tragic childhood marked by instability trauma and secrets that studios worked hard to erase. Raised in abject poverty, Bow's home life was deeply troubled. Her mother, Sarah, suffered from severe mental illness and once attempted to kill Clara in her sleep. Her father, Robert Bow, was largely absent and, when present, abusive. In a chilling confession revealed later in life, Clara disclosed that she was sexually assaulted by her father when she was a child. At a time when such truths were unspoken, Bow endured in silence. Her escape was acting. Winning a beauty and talent contest at age 16, she entered silent films and quickly rose to superstardom. But as her fame soared, her emotional health deteriorated. The pressure to maintain a cheerful, sexually confident persona crafted by Paramount Pictures clashed violently with her inner world. Gossip magazines painted her as scandalous, often exaggerating or inventing stories about wild behavior. By the early 1930s, with the advent of talkies and mounting mental strain, Bow suffered a breakdown. She retired from acting at just 28. Diagnosed with schizophrenia and later institutionalized, she spent much of her later life in seclusion. Only decades after her death in 1965 did biographers begin to piece together the extent of her trauma. Clara Bow wasn't just a symbol of the jazz age, she was a survivor of profound abuse, forced to wear a smile for the cameras while her past remained locked in the shadows. Raymond Burr, Best known for portraying the Honorable Perry Mason on television from 1957 to 1966, was the embodiment of integrity and justice on screen. But off-screen, Burr lived a carefully constructed lie to protect a secret that would have destroyed his career in mid-century Hollywood. He was a gay man in an era of intense homophobia. To explain his unmarried status and fend off speculation, Burr and his publicists fabricated a detailed and tragic personal history. He claimed to have been married to a Scottish concert pianist named Annette Sutherland, who allegedly died in a plane crash in 1943. He also spoke of a son who died of leukemia, none of whom ever existed. These fictional accounts were repeated in interviews and accepted by fans and the press. In truth, Burr had only one brief real marriage to actress Isabella Ward, which ended in divorce after just a few months. For over 35 years, Burr shared his life with a man named Robert Benavides, a former actor turned horticulturist. The two lived together on a vineyard in Sonoma County, California, developing a life of quiet partnership and mutual devotion. Despite being a respected public figure, Burr never acknowledged his sexuality. Even when pressed by journalists, he would abruptly shut down the conversation. Only after his death in 1993 did the truth begin to surface. Friends close to the couple confirmed their long-term relationship. Burr's story is emblematic of the double lives many gay actors were forced to live in order to survive in the entertainment industry. His devotion to Benavides and the pain of denying his true identity highlight the personal sacrifices required to maintain a false image in a time when authenticity could cost everything. Rock Hudson. Born Roy Harold Scherer Jr. on November 17, 1925, was the quintessential romantic lead of 1950s Hollywood. Handsome, masculine, and seemingly the ideal bachelor, he starred in box office hits like Pillow Talk and Giant. Yet behind the heartthrob image was a deeply concealed truth. Hudson was a gay man forced to live in hiding under the harsh spotlight of fame. In an era where being openly homosexual meant the end of a Hollywood career, Hudson's sexuality was considered a liability. When rumors of his orientation grew in the 1950s, his powerful agent Henry Wilson orchestrated a marriage of convenience between Hudson and his secretary Phyllis Gates in 1955. The union lasted just 3 years and ended in divorce, but it served its purpose. The public believed the image, and Hudson's star continued to rise. Privately, he had relationships with men and lived cautiously, always fearing exposure. It wasn't until 1985 when Hudson became the first major celebrity to publicly acknowledge an AIDS diagnosis that the facade collapsed. He passed away on October 2, 1985 at age 59, becoming a symbol of both Hollywood's enforced secrecy and the human toll of the AIDS epidemic. His revelation sparked a massive shift in public awareness of the disease and inspired greater empathy toward the gay community. Friends later revealed Hudson's anguish at never being able to live openly. He once confided, "I can't let it out because it would ruin me." Hudson's tragic dual existence, idolized by millions yet unable to show his true self, remains one of the most profound examples of the emotional cost of living a lie in Hollywood's golden era. Spencer Tracy. Born April 5, 1900, is often celebrated as one of Hollywood's most respected actors, known for his roles in Captains, Courageous, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Behind his polished image as a moral and religious family man, however, was a complex personal life riddled with secrets and heartbreak. Tracy married actress Louise Treadwell in 1923. In 1925, their son John was born deaf, a fact that devastated Tracy. A devout Catholic, he believed his child's condition was divine punishment for his own perceived moral failures. This crushing guilt contributed to his alcoholism and bouts of depression issues that plagued him for the rest of his life. Though Spencer and Louise remained legally married, they quietly separated in the 1990s. 1930s. Tracy then began a deeply private romantic relationship with Katharine Hepburn that lasted 26 years. Because of his religious beliefs and the Catholic Church's stance on divorce, Tracy never left his wife and Hepburn never pushed him to do so. Their relationship was kept strictly off the record, never photographed together in an openly romantic context, and rarely discussed publicly, even after his death in 1967. Studio publicists crafted an image of Tracy as a devout family man. Hepburn, in turn, played the role of close friend. Only after Tracy's passing did she openly speak about their bond. The level of secrecy they maintained reflects not just Hollywood's tight control over its stars, but the societal expectations of morality and masculinity that governed their lives. Tracy's story is not one of betrayal, but of quiet devotion to two people in vastly different ways, and a lifetime of emotional compartmentalization demanded by the era he lived in. Joan Crawford. Born Lucille Fay LeSueur on March 23, 1904, is remembered for her dramatic performances and tireless pursuit of perfection, earning an Academy Award for Mildred Pierce, 1945. Off-screen, she meticulously built the image of a loving mother and disciplined icon, posing for press photos with her 4 adopted children and gracing magazine covers as a model of maternal virtue. But that carefully crafted image shattered after her death when her eldest daughter, Christina Crawford, published the 1978 memoir, Mommy Dearest. The book, which later became a controversial film, portrayed Crawford as an emotionally and physically abusive parent. Christina described beatings' cruelty and bizarre punishments, including the infamous no wire hangers outburst. The public was shocked. Crawford had always appeared composed, charitable, and affectionate. Further adding to the scandal was the revelation that Crawford had adopted her youngest 2 children through Georgia Tann, a now notorious baby trafficker who illegally sold children through her Tennessee Children's Home Society. While there is no evidence Crawford was aware of the illegality, it cast a disturbing light on her family history. Crawford's 2 younger daughters publicly denied Christina's claims, leaving the truth contested. However, Joan's decision to disinherit Christina and her brother Christopher in her will, for reasons well known to them, added weight to the claims of estrangement and dysfunction. Though her legacy as an actress remains intact, Joan Crawford's name became synonymous with maternal cruelty in pop culture. The contrast between her powerful, controlled screen presence and the alleged chaos at home has led many to see her as a tragic figure, a woman possibly hardened by the pressures of fame, unable to offer the nurturing love she so publicly performed. Bing Crosby. Born Harry Lillis Crosby on May 3, 1903, was one of the 20th century's most beloved entertainers. His smooth baritone voice defined Christmas with songs like White Christmas, and his fatherly warmth on screen in films like Going My Way, 1944, cemented his reputation as America's ideal dad. But Crosby's public image sharply contradicted the stories told by his children. In 1983, his eldest son, Gary Crosby, published Going My Own Way, a memoir detailing a childhood marked by physical beatings and emotional manipulation. He claimed that Crosby enforced military-like discipline, demanding weekly weigh-ins and administering whippings with belts. Gary wrote that his father's approach to parenting was harsh and traumatizing, creating an environment ruled by fear. 2 of Bing's other sons, Philip and Dennis, supported parts of Gary's account, though a 3rd son, Lindsay, remained silent. Tragically, Lindsay later died by suicide in 1989 after years of battling depression and substance abuse. Bing's second family, including his second wife and their children, disputed Gary's depiction, insisting he was a caring, albeit strict, father. The public struggled to reconcile the 2 images: the gentle crooning priest of the bells of St. Mary's, and the tyrannical patriarch described by his sons. Some biographers suggest that Crosby's upbringing in a devout Catholic household and his own perfectionism contributed to his authoritarian parenting style. Crosby died in 1977, never publicly addressing the allegations. While his musical legacy remains unparalleled, he won an Oscar, sold over 500 million records, and influenced generations. His personal life remains clouded in controversy. His story serves as a reminder that even those with the most soothing voices may carry the loudest secrets behind closed doors. Charlie Chaplin, born April 16, 1889 in London, became one of the most recognizable figures in cinematic history through his character, the Tramp. With hits like City Lights and Modern Times, Chaplin made the world laugh while pushing artistic boundaries. But his off-screen life was riddled with disturbing secrets, particularly involving his troubling relationships with underage girls. In 1924, at age 35, Chaplin began an affair with 16-year-old actress Lita Grey, whom he had cast in The Gold Rush. When she became pregnant, he faced potential prosecution under California's statutory rape laws. In a desperate attempt to avoid charges, Chaplin married Grey in a secret ceremony in Mexico. The marriage quickly fell apart, resulting in a scandalous and highly publicized divorce in 1927. Lita's 50-page complaint alleged Chaplin had pressured her into an abortion, was emotionally abusive, and had multiple affairs during their marriage. Chaplin's predilection for younger women was a recurring pattern. Before Grey, he had been involved with 16-year-old Mildred Harris, whom he also married following an unexpected pregnancy. He later married 18-year-old Una O'Neill, daughter of playwright Eugene O'Neill, when he was 54. Hollywood studios worked aggressively to control the narrative portraying these relationships as romantic rather than predatory. His political views and alleged communist sympathies further complicated his image, eventually leading to his exile from the United States in 1952. Chaplin's artistic brilliance is undeniable, but his personal conduct by modern standards raises deeply troubling questions. For decades, official biographies downplayed or omitted these scandals, but today they are seen as stark examples of the power imbalance that once defined old Hollywood. Chaplin died in 1977 in Switzerland, never fully confronting the damage left behind by his personal choices. Gloria Graham, born November 28, 1923, was one of the most striking femme fatales of 1940s film noir. With roles in The Big Heat and an Oscar-winning performance in The Bad and the Beautiful, 1952. Graham was a master of seductive vulnerability. But her most sensational storyline wasn't on film, it was the real-life scandal that destroyed her Hollywood career. In 1948, Graham married director Nicholas Ray. Their union was short-lived and turbulent. According to multiple sources, including Nicholas Ray himself, the marriage ended when he allegedly walked in on Graham in bed with his teenage son Tony Ray, then just 13 years old. The incident was kept tightly under wraps, and the couple divorced in 1952, citing irreconcilable differences. The real shock came years later. In 1960, Graham secretly married Tony Ray, her former stepson, when she was 37, and he was 23. The couple wed in Tijuana, Mexico, far from Hollywood's cameras. Their relationship was kept hidden from the public for years until it emerged during a heated custody battle with Graham's ex-husband, writer Cy Howard. The revelation ignited scandal. Though legally permissible, the union was viewed as morally unacceptable. Studios turned their backs on Graham, and she was quietly blacklisted from major productions. Reduced to working in television and low-budget theater, her career never recovered. Despite the public shame, Graham and Tony remained together until 1974. She died in 1981 from breast cancer, having spent her final years on stage in England. Her story serves as one of the most extraordinary examples of Hollywood's ability to suppress taboos until they explode. The once glamorous star became a cautionary tale of how private choices once exposed could eclipse even the brightest talents.
Hidden children and family scandal.
Clark Gable, dubbed the King of Hollywood, became a symbol of rugged American masculinity with roles in classics like Gone with the Wind. 1939.
Clark Gable and Loretta
But
Young,
one of his
both
most
at the height
closely
of their
guarded
careers,
secrets was a child
began
he
an
conceived
affair while
during an
filming The
affair,
Call
a
of the
daughter
Wild,
he never
which
publicly
resulted in an
acknowledged.
unplanned pregnancy.
In
Fearing
1935,
scandal,
Gable
Young
began
devised a plan
filming
to
The
cover
Call
it
of the
up.
Wild,
She secretly
opposite
gave birth
actress
to a
Loretta
daughter,
Young.
placed her in an orphanage,
During
and
production,
later
the two
adopted
engaged
the
in a
child,
brief,
naming her
passionate
Judy.
affair that resulted
For
in
years,
Young's
Young
pregnancy.
maintained this fiction,
At the time,
never
Gable was
revealing
married
that
and
Gable
under
was the
contract with
biological
MGM,
father.
and
Gable
Young was a
never
devout
acknowledged
Catholic.
Judy, though they
Both
met once
feared
when
the
she was
scandal would
15.
destroy their
Young denied
careers.
the truth when Judy
Young
questioned her
secretly left
resemblance to
Hollywood,
Gable.
gave birth
The
to a
secret
daughter,
remained
Judith
intact
Judy
for
Lewis,
decades.
in January
Hollywood insiders
1935,
speculated,
and
but
placed
the
her in
press
an
never
orphanage for a
confirmed it.
year.
In
She later
1994,
staged a
Judy
public
revealed
adoption
in
of her own child
autobiography
to
that she
maintain
confronted
appearances.
Young in 1966,
Gable, meanwhile, never
and Young
publicly
finally
acknowledged
admitted
the
truth.
child,
The
though it's
deception was
reported he met
motivated by
Judy
Young's
once when she
Catholic
was
beliefs
15.
and her
The ruse
desire
was
to
so
protect
well
her
executed
career.
that even
The
Judy
emotional
didn't know
toll
the
on
truth
all
until
involved was
adulthood.
significant.
She
Young
wrote
lived
in her
fear of
1994
exposure.
memoir
Gable never
that when she
acknowledged his
finally
daughter, and
confronted
Judy
her
grew up
mother in
confused about her
1966,
origins. This cover-up
Young
highlights
admitted
the
that
lengths
Gable
stars went
was her
to protect
biological
their
father.
images and the power of
The
Hollywood's
emotional
studio
damage
system
was
to shape
profound.
public perception.
Judy grew up feeling isolated, often bullied for her distinctive features, including ears that resembled Gable's. The decision to hide the pregnancy was driven by societal pressures, Catholic guilt studio interference, and the belief that such a scandal would end both their careers. Gable died in 1960, never having publicly accepted his role as a father. His legacy as an icon remains intact, but the hidden truth about his daughter reveals the extraordinary lengths Hollywood stars went to protect their images, even at the cost of personal connection and parental responsibility. Loretta Young, born January 6, 1913, was one of Hollywood's most celebrated actresses of the 1930s and 40s, earning an Academy Award for The Farmer's Daughter, 1947, and admiration for her pious, wholesome image. But behind the purity of her public persona lay a lifelong secret, one that intertwined deeply with moral conflict, religious pressure, and image control. In 1935, during the filming of The Call of the Wild, Young had an affair with her co-star Clark Gable. The result was a pregnancy that threatened to derail her burgeoning career. As an unmarried Catholic woman, having a child out of wedlock was socially and religiously taboo. Young went into hiding, gave birth in secret, and later adopted her own daughter, Judy Lewis, to make the story appear legitimate. For decades, Young never told Judy the truth. The child was raised believing she was adopted, despite bearing a striking resemblance to Gable. Judy's questions were met with vague responses, until at age 31, she confronted her mother and was finally told the truth. Gable never acknowledged paternity, though he met Judy once and made no attempt to develop a relationship. The internal conflict haunted Young. Later in life, she admitted in private conversations that she considered the encounter with Gable to have been non-consensual, possibly rape, but did not publicly redefine the experience during her lifetime. Judy Lewis's memoir in 1994 exposed the long-suppressed truth and challenged the carefully preserved legend of her mother. Young died in 2000, having maintained the lie for over 6 decades. Her story is a painful reminder of how even the most devout and principled stars felt compelled to bury personal truths under Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight, sacrificing openness for survival. Ingrid Bergman, born August 29, 1915 in Stockholm, Sweden, captured the hearts of audiences with performances in Casablanca, 1942, Notorious, 1946, and Gaslight, 1944. Her on-screen image was one of purity, elegance, and virtue, an image that made her fall from grace all the more dramatic. In 1949, Bergman traveled to Italy to work with filmmaker Roberto Rossellini on Stromboli. Their professional collaboration quickly became romantic despite the fact that Bergman was still married to her first husband, Dr. Petter Lindstrom. When she became pregnant with Rossellini's child out of wedlock, the American public turned on her. The backlash was swift and severe. U.S. Senator Edwin C. Johnson denounced her on the Senate floor, calling her a powerful influence for evil. Religious leaders condemned her movie theaters, boycotted her films, and the press savaged her reputation. Forced into virtual exile, Bergman left Hollywood and lived in Europe, marrying Rossellini and having 3 children, including future actress Isabella Rossellini. For 7 years, Bergman was persona non grata in the U.S., a pariah not because of criminal behavior, but for violating the era's rigid moral expectations for female stars. Her male peers who committed similar or worse transgressions were rarely punished so harshly. In 1956, she returned to Hollywood triumphantly in Anastasia, a role that earned her a second Academy Award. The ovation she received at the 1959 Oscars signaled her professional redemption, but the years of exile left emotional scars. Ingrid Bergman's scandal seems tame by modern standards, but in her time, it shattered the illusion of moral perfection that Hollywood demanded and punished her for challenging it. Judy Garland. Born Frances Ethel Gumm on June 10, 1922, is one of Hollywood's most enduring legends, beloved for her role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, 1939. But behind her child star innocence was a lifetime of family secrets, manipulation, and private anguish. When Judy was just 4 years old, her family fled Grand Rapids, Minnesota, under murky circumstances. The real reason her father, Frank Gumm, was rumored to have engaged in inappropriate encounters with young men, an allegation that was never publicly confirmed, but widely whispered in Hollywood circles. The family resettled in California under the pretense of seeking better entertainment opportunities for their daughters. This early deception set the tone for Garland's life. MGM soon took control of her image, placing her on strict diets, weight loss pills, and sleeping medication before she reached her teens. Her childhood was orchestrated by handlers who masked dysfunction with glitter and songs. Judy's relationship with her father remained emotionally complex. He died suddenly when she was 13, just as her career began to rise. She never fully understood the secrets surrounding his life, but the sense of abandonment and secrecy followed her into adulthood. Her own personal life mirrored the chaos marked by 5 marriages, financial instability, and a long battle with addiction. Though she sang over the rainbow with haunting hope, Judy Garland's life was defined by shadows she was never able to outrun. She died at just 47 from an accidental drug overdose, a tragic end to a life shaped by the pressures of stardom and a foundation built on family lies. Jerry Lewis. Born Joseph Levitch on March 16, 1926, was a comedic powerhouse known for films like The Nutty Professor and for co-hosting the Muscular Dystrophy Association's annual telethon raising over $2 billion. He built his public image on generosity and family values. But Lewis harbored a personal secret that deeply contrasted his wholesome persona. In the 1950s, Lewis reportedly had an affair with model Lynn Dixon, which resulted in the birth of a daughter, Susan. Raised in poverty and plagued by illness, including Crohn's disease, Susan bore a strong physical resemblance to Lewis and repeatedly sought acknowledgement. But Lewis never publicly recognized her, refused a DNA test, and offered no support, financial or emotional. Despite Lewis having 6 sons from his marriage to Patty Palmer, Susan claimed she was treated like a dirty secret. Her allegations gained renewed attention when in his 2017 will, Lewis explicitly disinherited all 6 sons and their descendants, leaving them nothing from his estate. The will made no mention of Susan at all, effectively erasing her existence from his legal legacy. While some dismissed her claims as attempts to gain attention, others noted the striking resemblance and consistent narrative. Susan maintained she wasn't seeking money, only recognition from a man who had built his career on helping Jerry's kids while allegedly neglecting his own. Lewis died in 2017 at age 91, leaving behind a legacy of laughter, but also a trail of personal contradictions. The disconnect between his public philanthropy and private estrangement remains one of the most unsettling aspects of his story, prompting uncomfortable questions about how easily Hollywood stars could curate compassion on stage while concealing emotional coldness off it. Patty Duke. Born Anna Marie Duke on December 14, 1946, was one of the youngest actors ever to win an Academy Award, claiming it at age 16 for her portrayal of Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker, 1962. But behind her impressive career was a paternity mystery so tangled it became one of Hollywood's most bizarre family secrets. In 1970, at just 23, Duke became pregnant during a turbulent period marked by undiagnosed bipolar disorder. She was romantically involved with three men in quick succession: teen idol Desi Arnaz Jr., actor John Astin, whom she would later marry, and Michael Tell, a virtual stranger whom she impulsively wed for 13 days in what she later described as a manic episode. When her son Sean was born in 1971, Duke named Astin as the father. He raised Sean as his own. However, as Sean Astin matured, he began to question his origins. Patty eventually told him she believed Desi Arnaz Jr. was likely his biological father. In adulthood, Sean underwent DNA testing and learned that Michael Tell, her short-lived husband, was his actual biological father. The confusion surrounding Sean's parentage stemmed from Duke's unstable mental health and the stigma surrounding her condition. At the time, bipolar disorder was poorly understood, and Duke struggled with erratic behavior, rapid mood swings, and a deep desire to build a family amid emotional chaos. Despite the rocky beginning, Sean Astin grew up to be a respected actor himself, best known for The Goonies and The Lord of the Rings. Patty Duke eventually became an outspoken advocate for mental health awareness, using her painful past to educate and empower others. Her story is a testament to resilience and the quiet complexities of family behind the spotlight. Barbara Stanwyck, plus Gary Cooper. Patricia Neal. Born Anna Marie Duke on December 14, 1946, was one of the youngest actors ever to win an Academy Award, claiming it at age 16 for her portrayal of Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker, 1962. But behind her impressive career was a paternity mystery so tangled, it became one of Hollywood's most bizarre family secrets. In 1970, at just 23, Duke became pregnant during a turbulent period marked by undiagnosed bipolar disorder. She was romantically involved with three men in quick succession: teen idol Desi Arnaz Jr., actor John Astin, whom she would later marry, and Michael Tell, a virtual stranger, whom she impulsively wed for 13 days in what she later described as a manic episode. When her son Sean was born in 1971, Duke named Astin as the father. He raised Sean as his own. However, as Sean Astin matured, he began to question his origins. Patty eventually told him she believed Desi Arnaz Jr. was likely his biological father. In adulthood, Sean underwent DNA testing and learned that Michael Tell, her short-lived husband, was his actual biological father. The confusion surrounding Sean's parentage stemmed from Duke's unstable mental health and the stigma surrounding her condition. At the time, bipolar disorder was poorly understood, and Duke struggled with erratic behavior, rapid mood swings, and a deep desire to build a family amid emotional chaos. Despite the rocky beginning, Sean Astin grew up to be a respected actor himself, best known for The Goonies and The Lord of the Rings. Patty Duke eventually became an outspoken advocate for mental health awareness, using her painful past to educate and empower others. Her story is a testament to resilience and the quiet complexities of family behind the spotlight. Born May 7, 1901, was the embodiment of American masculinity on screen, stoic, principled, and irresistibly charming. Off-screen, he was known for his long-standing marriage to socialite Veronica "Rocky" Cooper. But in the late 1940s, while filming The Fountainhead, 1949, Cooper began an affair with his 25 years younger co-star, Patricia Neal, a rising star with raw talent and vulnerability. Their relationship, hidden from from the press but whispered about in Hollywood circles, was passionate and deeply emotional. Despite Cooper's marriage, the affair continued for several years. In 1950, Neil became pregnant with Cooper's child. Terrified of the scandal it could ignite, and under pressure from Cooper, she had an illegal abortion. At the time, abortion was not only dangerous, but also career-ending for a woman if discovered. The decision devastated Neil. She later described it as the saddest thing that ever happened to me. Cooper, a Catholic, was racked with guilt. When his wife Rocky learned of the affair, she reportedly threatened Neil's career and marriage never materialized. Ultimately, Cooper ended the relationship and recommitted to his wife, even renewing his religious faith. Neil fled Hollywood for the Broadway stage, trying to escape the heartbreak. Though they never reunited, she never stopped loving him, and only in later years did she speak openly about the affair. Neil would go on to marry author Roald Dahl and have 5 children, but the physical and emotional toll of the abortion and her lost love remained a painful chapter. She believed the trauma may have affected her later pregnancies. Gary Cooper died in 1961. Their secret, once carefully buried, stands today as a reminder of how the moral expectations of the era silenced women, erased vulnerability, and protected male icons at any cost. The dazzling world of classic Hollywood often hid more than it revealed. Behind the flawless faces and award-winning performances were raw truths of pain, secrecy, and sacrifice. These 21 stories don't just expose scandal, they humanize legends. So now we ask, should we judge these stars by the secrets they kept, or the art they gave the world? Drop your thoughts in the comments and be part of the conversation. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Uncovered Tinseltown Uncovered for more powerful stories that go beyond the spotlight, because truth deserves its place in history too.